Hey, Terrance.
Yep, I'm here. Hey, Jelly.
Hey, so I can't start my video.
Let me check what's going on. Participants. You must be this one. So I think so now since we've got this in my name, it's so confusing to see who is.
Yeah, I bet.
Who. Okay, so make Terrance Hamm the host.
Okay, now you made me the host, so thank you. Awesome. And Maureen's there too. Can you make her a co-host so she can get her video on? I don't know if she doesn't want you or not, but
I think you can now, but I can't
oh,
because you're
got
the host.
you.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Oh, Maureen, can you actually put your video on, or do you want to put your video on?
Let's see, let me try. It says you cannot restart your video because the host has stopped it.
So, Terrance, if I make her host, it's going to take it away from me, and I need to run her slides.
Just click the webcam icon with the X through it, and that should fix it. Like if you click, like unclick it.
Ooh.
In the participants list.
Okay, it just shows me more.
And
Like
what happens
I can't just click on it.
when you see more? Is there an option there for ask her to show video?
No, it's make her host.
Yeah, like don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. I'm sure they'll live without seeing me, so I'm comfortable with that.
Huh.
There's probably a way to do it that we'll figure out at some point.
Yeah, it's so weird because usually it does let you.
Yeah, usually it does.
All right.
1 second, Jelly. I'll reclaim host and see if I can fix it. Just 1 second. Okay.
I'm gonna work on the PowerPoint.
Okay, so I just allowed panelists to start video. So now,
Oh, that was it.
Fun.
Thank you.
Okay, and now I'll make you host again. Make host. Change host. There we go.
Perfect. I hated that you couldn't have yours on, Maureen. All right, I'm gonna. Did you give me back host powers or no, Terrance?
I think I did. Let me make sure. I'm sure.
You might have.
This is me talking, so this is you. Yep, you're a host now.
Okay, because I can't tell. I'm just like, oh, there's two. I gotta change the name on it. Okay. I'm terrible. All right, here we go. Now I'm gonna share screen, Precollege, share, slideshow. All right. All right, and for those of you listening out there, we will probably start in 5 minutes. All right. Thank you everyone for joining us today for the Connect, Discuss, and Learn Pre-College webinar. This is an update from the Department of Ed. We are happy to have you here. Please remember that we only have the question and answers box. So if you have a question, I do suggest that you wait a bit before you start asking questions in case it's answered during the presentation, but jot them down somewhere else, questions that you want to have answered. And then when we ask for questions, you can put it into the Q&A. Also, we will be doing an effective practice after. We have Ray Cordero from Texas. He is going to be talking about infusing music into your pre-college programs, either this summer or the fall. All right, so we're going to begin. Again, you are all muted. Only the panelists can speak, so you don't need to raise your hands. All you need to do is, if you have questions, put them in the Q&A box. Now I will turn it over to our president, Maureen Hoyler.
Well, good afternoon, and let me second what Angelica said about joining us, and thank you for doing this. As she mentioned last week, the COE board met virtually. We had our spring meeting virtually, and during the meeting, we were joined for various parts by, I guess, next slide, please, Dr. Linda Bird-Johnson, who is the Senior Director of the Division of Student Service in the Department of Education. And she reports to Dr. Christopher McCarron, who also joined us. He is the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Higher Education Programs, and he is the political appointee immediately above Dr. Bird-Johnson. So Jelly, next slide, please. And then I guess the next slide. So one of the updates that we received is that Ed still does plan to release FAQs in the next several weeks. Now we've been hearing the next several weeks for a while, so but it does seem like we're getting closer to the actual next several weeks. What I think became clear is that these FAQs will not be just for TRIO. They will be for discretionary programs, and that may mean that we'll still have some unanswered questions, and we'll have to push the department for some more answers. So next slide, please. So what we did get some great information for Upward Bound Math Science, Veterans Upward Bound, Talent Search EOC, that there won't be any limit on carryover from 2021 to 21, I'm sorry, from 1920 to 2021. Let me say it again. So this year, 1920, so if the end of year, grant year, you haven't spent all your money, there will be no ceiling on what is carried over, what your institution can carry over into 2021. Now, this works automatically. It's not a situation where you have to ask to carry over money. In fact, don't ask to carry over money. Just the money will not be removed from your G5 account. So also, if there are any Veterans Upward Bound programs on this webinar, Dr. Bird-Johnson, both Dr. McCarron and Dr. Bird-Johnson indicated some flexibility in extending the deadline date. Right now, if you request approval to submit your APR late, you can have up to 2 weeks, June 15th, to submit it. If you need more than June 15th, will you please contact Ms. Vialpando? Next slide, please. So the way the carryover will work is that you will still have to submit a budget for 2021. Now, it's not time to submit the budget yet because there's some unanswered questions. And so if you can't get an answer, and the program specialists have basically been told they can't answer anything until the FAQs are out, it makes sense to wait. You may want to send an email that just contacts your program officer, program specialist, and says that you do have Your institution has some recommendations in terms of changes, but you understand you should wait until the FAQs are out. And is this correct? Next slide, please. So in addition to that, where we got the information, the department also requested recommendations from the COE board about stipends. So the COE board recommended that upward bound and upward bound math science stipends be raised to $400 during the summer months, and so that's, you can do that for 3 months during the summer, and $100 per month for the remainder of the year. Now, this is the recommendation from the COE board to the department at their request. Next slide, please. And this is the board also recommended that the stipend for upward bound and upward bound work study should be raised to $1,200 per month for those 3 months. Now, remember that this is a ceiling. So if you, for example, your project wanted to pay $500 per month, and if this is approved, $500 a month for work study stipend, if this is approved, this would be this would be allowable. Next slide, please. Also, that the veterans upward bound stipend be raised to $100 a month for each year for the 12 months, and talent search and EOCs be allowed to provide stipends of up to $100 per month for every month. Next slide, please. Now, the only reason that the department could approve those recommendations, which are inconsistent with the legislation, is because the CARES Act allows them to provide broad discretion, the secretary to approve, to use broad discretion in for the 1920 years and the 2021 year to grants to institutions or agencies that sponsor grants. After 2021, the stipend levels or the inability of talent search and EOC to offer stipends would revert to that experience, that which is in the current law, unless Congress acts to change it. And again, this is a recommendation from COE to the Department of Education. They have to approve it before it goes into effect. The 95,000 carryover, that's done, a done deal. This action on stipends is still awaiting approval from the department. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to go over the unanswered questions that we have with the department. So we've got number 1 answered. There's no ceiling on carry forward. The second question relates to student support services. So, and third question relates to student support services. We'll go over number 4, Dr. Bird, which has been answered. So Dr. Bird Johnson has indicated that the determination of substantial progress for 1920 will be made on the basis of the numbers reported in the APR in 1819. Okay, so let's go over what substantial progress is. In your grant award notification, your institution is put on notice that if you don't make substantial progress in carrying out the work that you propose to do, that the department will not continue funding after the year for which the GAN is awarded. So you have a GAN for 1920. In a normal year, what the department would look at, they would look at unexpended funds in 1920. They would look at maybe some previous experiences your institution would have, and they would contact you and say, how many students have you served? And if you haven't served at least 85% of the number you were funded to serve, and can't show that you're going to do that by the end of the grant year, they would not give you a GAN for 2021. This year, however, they're not going to base their continuation of funding into 2021 based on how many students you served in 1920. They're going to go back to the numbers that you reported on your 1819 APR. Now, if you didn't report that you served at least 85% of the number you were funded to serve, then please contact Ms. Vialpando. The OMB memorandum number 5, dated March 19th, notes the deposits on activities that were canceled because of the pandemic would still be allowable. Is this correct? So we're waiting for an answer from the department. Number 6. So next slide, please. So now we're not talking about what's going to happen immediately, because immediately what we want to happen is answers to these questions. But then next year or later in the summer, we're going to ask the department that we are asking the department to renegotiate your objectives. And that renegotiation would affect both the 1920 year and the 2021 year. Well, why do you need to renegotiate your objectives? You need to renegotiate your objectives because you may not be able to place as many students in college. You may not make as many students complete a rigorous curricula. And so you want to lower the objectives in order to be able to get your full 15 prior experience points. So 8 is the student support services. We've talked about the Veterans Upward Bound APR. 10 is McNair. We've talked about stipends in 11. And we still are waiting from a ruling from the department on incentives, but we are hoping that with flexibility and stipends, there won't be as much need for incentives as there would have been if there were no flexibility on stipends. So that's where we are in terms of the department, and maybe we have some questions. So if you've got any questions now, please put them in your in the question and answer box.
So the only one that we have so far is when it comes to stipends based on the CARES Act, will Upward Bound be the only program allowed to provide stipends?
Can some talent search person that was listening to this answer that question? You have to do it in the Q&A box.
While somebody is doing that, let's go on to the next one. What is the situation with the grant award notifications for 2020, 2021?
Well, we just checked this within hours, and they are working very hard to get the June 1 notifications out by Friday. That's the latest that we have.
Yeah, someone said my campus is getting nervous.
I'm sure they are. I mean,
yeah, I mean, we used to tell people, I mean, we get it. You know, if the department has not reached out saying, hey, we're pulling your grant because of substantial progress, or you had a bad audit, or, you know, there should be, it's a 5-year grant. So it should be noted that your GAN would be coming, but we do recognize that institutions will not move unless they have that next year award, their next year GAN, even though the GAN says every year for 5 years.
So a number of institutions do move, but a number don't. So it really is an institutional decision.
So no one's answered the question.
Okay, so let's go back to that slide, Jelly. Okay, can we?
I'm looking. Hold on. A lot came in. Hold on.
Okay.
So somebody said in the box, though I'm not sure because this is the first time I've heard it, is that she got her GAN today.
Excellent. Well, that's fantastic news, and
Could that,
certainly
could that person actually send me? Well, well, could that person actually send me the GAN they got today? I would like to just check that over to see if that's true. She's the only one. Oh, but someone said they got their talent search GAN today. So another person said I got my talent search GAN. So it's not, maybe it's not upward bound. Okay, so there's lots of questions that have come in since.
Okay, so let's keep going for the question, and let's keep anybody from Talent Search or EOC that knows the answer to, can anybody accept if the COE recommendations are followed, who knows the answer to that question, if they'd answer it in the question and answer box.
I've heard varying guidance on whether or not going virtual is a change in scope. Can you answer that?
I believe that it's a change of scope, okay? It's one of those changes in scope that is, that they have to approve, okay? But when you renegotiate your budget, if you renegotiate your budget, you should have for the record that you noted to them that you were moving your program from a in-person program to a virtual program, and for what period.
Okay, so I didn't scroll up far enough. So a lot of people have recommended that Talent Search and EOC can offer $100 in the stipends for the 2021 year.
And it would start, whenever they approve it. So if they approved it tomorrow, you could offer it for June, July, August, September.
Yeah, we're hoping that it's this month. Okay. So someone else just said their June 1 start date and got their GAN about a half an hour ago. So
fantastic.
Yeah,
fantastic.
It's good to know.
I mean, it's not fantastic. I mean,
well, yeah, but it's
it's better than the alternative. So thank you.
3 days early. So so go into your G5 system to pull down your GANs to look to see if your GAN's there as well. Can we pay for work study even if it wasn't included in our current budget?
Okay, let's go through that. Section 200.308 in the OMB circular, cost circular. So it gives you those times at which you need permission to do something that is not in your current budget. The only time that you need permission to do something is if it's a change of scope. And usually a change of scope means you're stopping doing something, not that you're adding doing something. But otherwise, you can add any line items you want to. You can move money from any line item to any other line item. Can't be a change of scope, and it can't be a purchase of equipment. Now, technology, as long as it costs below $5,000, unless your institution has a lower threshold for equipment, is not equipment. It's a consumable. It's a supply. So you don't need approval to purchase supplies. So the only things you need approval for would be to change your scope or to purchase equipment, to transfer money into equipment when you don't have an equipment line. Now, the other reason that most upward bound and upward bound math science programs are going to need approval is that they have money for room and board, or at least board in their budgets, at least meals in their budgets, and they're probably going to spend less on meals than, less on room and board if they're a residential program than they would have. And to take money out of what is called participant support costs, again, in OMB 200.308C, you need approval. So if you need more information about this in the regulations, these are the kind of regulations everybody should be able to be familiar with. We're doing a number of seminars on legislation regulations. So please consider having you and your staff participate in those virtual offerings.
Someone asked, does the OMB reference meals, specifically allowing meals for UB to purchase meals for students?
Okay, see, OMB covers every government program, every government grant, to colleges, to agencies, to hospitals, it's broad. It could be from the Defense Department or the Energy Department. So it never mentions anything about TRIO. Where you get things that are specifically related to TRIO is in the Upward Bound regulations or the EOC regulations or the talent search regulations. And there, it is, meals are specifically indicated as a allowable cost. Now, it does say there that if it's a meal for a residential room and board for a summer program, that it can't exceed what the institution is charging. It puts a ceiling on how much could be spent for room and board, but it is specifically listed as an allowable cost. I think it, well, I'm not going to say.
So someone has said, has there been any word on a budget increase for 2021? So we should know that, right? And if the grant award notification came out, we should be able to tell that, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
So if somebody could send me the grant award notification, or if you could tell me what your % of increase was in your grant award notification, then we would know. Okay. There's a lot of talk about the GANs. If we have a better year in 2019-22 than we did in 2018-19, could we request our substantial progress be based upon that year?
No.
Okay, this is a meal. Are we allowed to purchase gift cards from restaurants or fast food places in order to provide food for our students?
Okay. In COE's opinion, yes, you are. It's reasonable to provide meals. Meals are specifically noted. So the question is, how do you get the money for the meals to the students? So this is a question of documentation. How are you going to do it? How are you going to document that you only gave meals to people that were participating in the summer program? Did you mail them to them? The Department of Education frequently asks questions on the emergency grant aid student. Now that's CARES Act. It's not related to TRIO, but they specifically say that debit cards are an appropriate way of transferring money to students. So I would not refer to it as a gift card. I would refer to it as a debit card. Again, you want to show the regulations to your supervisor, discuss it with the business office so that you have good documentation for these decisions. But if they were on your campus, even if it was not a non-residential program, you would be providing meals, and that is specifically referenced in the regulation.
So I think this is worth going over again because I think people are confused. If COE recommendations are followed, Talent Search can give $100 a month stipend. If recommendations are not followed, Talent Search cannot give stipends.
And that's absolutely correct. That is, or they could say, the department could say, yes, we'll allow Talent Search and EOC to give stipends, but it'll only be $50 or $75, or it'll be $300. Again, we made a recommendation. They have to, we hope that they respond to that recommendation and trust that they will.
Can institutions take our funding? What should we do if we think that will happen? Our institution is planning to put non-TRIO staff on SSS money next year if the grant is renewed.
Well, that's not allowable, okay, and creates a major exposure in an audit if they do it. So your responsibility would be to, so two things could happen, okay? So let's say your institution is on the brink of closing, okay? And so they request that the department allow them to use SSS money to pay other staff. The department has the authority under CARES to approve that, not your program specialist. It would be decided at a much higher level than your program specialist. Let's say it's just business as usual and the same thing is happening as always happens in TRIO where they want your money. Well, then your responsibility is to say how much exposure, how much they could end up paying back under an audit, given their choice to do that. And we can help you with that letter if they move to do that.
So Maureen, I heard from one person saying that there was no budget increase in the GAN. But I do not have confirmation.
Okay, so we'll keep looking at that.
Yeah. So someone asked about room and board, if that should be considered participants' support costs.
Yes, room, board, and stipends, tuition are participant support costs.
What is the current limit on the stipend for the Upper Bound Summer Program?
Can you answer that, Angelica, and I'll be right back.
Yeah, the regulation states that it is $60 per month in the summer. So
Are there any other questions?
I'm just looking through. There's a lot of repetitiveness. So with testing canceled for the spring, will UBMS take a hit? Michigan projects did a couple of years ago when the test scores were not released in time for the APR.
That's the kind of thing that we need to renegotiate objectives about.
Someone said I came in late. So I was wondering, I heard something about meal stipends for Upper Bound, but I didn't hear if it was appropriate.
Celia's position is that it is appropriate to provide stipend meals for participants in the Upward Bound virtual programs.
Well, let's answer a couple more and then we'll go to the effective practice and then come back.
Okay.
For talent search, has the department indicated that they would give any leeway for prior experience points if they haven't reached 90% in 1920, or will
That's the whole point of renegotiating the objective.
Okay. Okay. Maureen mentioned allowance in larger carryover for UB. I'm assuming that is for all TRIO programs.
All TRIO programs except student support services programs in the last year of their grant.
Okay, and then the last question before we turn it over, Terrance, to the effective practice is someone asked about copies of the PowerPoint. The recording and the PowerPoint will be added to our professional development weekly that tends to come out sometime between Friday and Sundays. So you will be on the lookout for that. It doesn't go out to this particular group specifically. It goes out to the world. So if you're not on our list to get the weeklies from us, if you don't get that twice a week weeklies from us, I encourage you to contact Rosa Spencer at our office to see if she can assist you in getting you onto our list. Now at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Terrance. He's going to play a video from Ray Cordero, who is the either incoming or current, I apologize, Texas State Trio president, and he's talking about infusing music into your programs, either this summer or fall.
Thanks, Jelly. Can you make me the host?
Yes, I can.
Just one moment as it loads. Just 1 second, Jelly. Sorry about this. Seems like my internet connection is a little wonky.
That's okay. I had the same problem the other day.
I am refreshing the video. Just 1 second.
Hello, everybody out there in the trio world.
All right, seems like we're almost good to go. Full size. All right, can you see it, Jelly?
I can.
Great.
My name is Ray Cordero. I serve as the Senior Director for Trio Programs at Texas State University. I am also blessed to have the privilege of serving as the President for the Texas Trio Association. And my reason for coming to you here today is to share a couple of ideas about programming, specifically with STEM, specifically using media, and more specifically music, and getting more specific than that, hip hop music. And so I'm here to hopefully give you a few ideas about some things that you might be able to utilize in your program. Trying to speak with generality here and some understanding about the administrative red tape that many of you may be facing. With that consideration, a little bit of my background. So I received both my undergraduate and graduate degrees from Texas State University. My graduate work focused on recruiting first-generation marginalized populations to post-secondary education through the art of hip hop. And so that was some of the research I did. Can you tell? Sorry. It's better. This is a recording, so it's unscripted. You're getting me all off the top. Everything's up here. That work was particularly done with our TRIO program. So working as a graduate student, I was working with those programs to survey and talk to their students during that time to understand what it was that really was a driving factor for them. And of course, not here saying that hip hop music was the end all be all to get people into school. It was just a different medium to accomplish a common objective goal, right? And that's what we're looking at when we look at STEM. So to those of you that have done STEM supplemental proposals, Talent Search and Upward Bound, you are probably looking at Talent Search in particular, ways to continue that model through the summer. Upward Bound, of course, always looking for innovative ways to draw on your students. A little bit more about my background. I'm also a founder of an organization called the Hip Hop Congress. The Hip Hop Congress has chapters across the United States, and it's a blend of community activism and involvement along with creativity and expression. And so it's kind of like a rock the vote or a vote or die initiative for all my my older folks that are out there. They can remember those initiatives. Older is not the word. I prefer seasoned, and all my Renaissance people. In addition to that, I am also myself a hip hop artist / artist in general. So I was really involved in the art of freestyle battle and rap. If you've seen 8 Mile, back when that stuff was actually coming out, that's how I was making a living. When I was in college, I didn't have to work a whole lot because I was battling a lot. And then eventually I ended up getting signed to Interscope Records. So that was a pretty cool experience. All of that while I was still working with Trio. Shout out to Keelan Morgan, because as a director, he was the one that allowed me to actually stay on the road and continue working. So I was in Talent Search at the time. So I did a show called 106 in Park. There was an episode that's called Freestyle Friday. And so it's just a chance where you could battle on live television on BET. And so I would do that, and then I would come back, and I was an advisor at the time for Talent Search. Worn a lot of different hats in the Trio realm. So I was an advisor in Talent Search. These kids would see me on TV, and I'd be like, let's talk about college. And they'd be like, rhyme a bunch of words. And I'd be like, that's not what we're here for. But in any event, so professional musician in various senses of the word, done a lot of different stuff, radio, Southwest, a lot of different touring events and all kinds of stuff. And so naturally, I have a gravitation and a passion to music and trying to figure out ways that we can reach students on the level that they're seeing. We have a fast food culture that we're dealing with. They get a lot of information, a lot of content, a lot of media very quickly. If you've ever tried to keep up with new releases on a platform like Spotify or Apple Music, it's almost impossible. There's enough music and enough content coming out from artists these days that it's different than a lot of us in generations where a whole album dropped and you focused on a single or two, and there was a theme and a feel and there were video. I mean, it's a completely different realm. And so because they are the I see it, I touch it, I want it here and now crowd, we have to understand how to meet them at that level. And the other thing that we know about them is that they're very entrepreneurial. We know that. And so trying to develop things that can really engage students on these levels are what I find hone in on our services and that bridge to those aha moments in certain senses. Now, every student in Upward Bound that I oversee 2 Upward Bound programs, a total of 6 Trio programs, but 2 of them I'm direct service oriented with. And so it's not saying that every Upward Bound student is just, I'm all about the music. Where's it at? We have a lot of people that are like, I don't make music, so what am I doing in here? But you split that and you look at various ways to provide that. So we're talking about the music heads here, though. So some ideas in terms of what you're looking at. So if you're like me, you're in this virtual model, you're like, how did this get here? How did we get here? And have I washed my hands today, right? Well, what we'd like to look at and focus on is how to have some continuity with our students. So what we did was we initially, for Upward Bound, we wrote a STEM supplemental grant, and our focus was how to use music to teach STEM to students. So I partnered with a gentleman named Dr. Raphael Travis within the School of Social Work, and we drafted a curriculum. And when I say we, he was the one that had a lot of ideas about curriculum. He is also, though he's in social work, he's an avid hip-hop enthusiast, which is amazing. And so he had some really cool ideas about how to get this done. We put that together. We ended up doing a buy for some equipment. So we bought some Macs and some, they're called audio interfaces. They're like boxes that stuff plugs into your Mac, then it plugs into this thing, and you can talk on a microphone and hear yourself and do all these other things. We bought some DJ equipment, y'all know what I'm talking about. And we started working with students. And what we found was by utilizing that medium, we were able to reach them on a lot of different levels. Now, of course, you have students that just They just want to play with, let's make music. But you can do that. So music is all about timing and notes. Everybody knows it's about a beat, so you can maintain on a beat. So that was one thing that we did. We taught math, and we taught counting, and we taught beat exercises through production. So students could make their own beats at different tempos, which teaches them, different levels of variations of fractions and control. We also were able to teach things like frequency and pitch, because mixing music. And so I have a work set up. I'll show y'all, and then I have a studio set up over there. So there's a microphone and all the rest of that stuff. So mixing music is a lot of math. It just is. When you're in there actually controlling music software, where a lot of it is mathematical equation. And so we looked at that. The other ways that we were able to do this, and this is just, I'm just giving you everything that's up here. I'm not like reading off of a list, but the other thing we did was we started using music as a way to analyze statistical trends in typically under and in marginalized populations. So we would have students listen to hip hop artists that are at now. Example could be a guy like Meek Mill from Philadelphia. Meek Mill was highly publicized for his wrongful imprisonment and noting the incarceration records of people of color, particularly Black men, in marginalized populations and communities. And when you look at things like that, you were able to look at a larger set of data that has to do with a lot of different varying factors. Education attainment levels, those of y'all that write grants when you're doing your needs section, we just found a way to turn that needs section into something cool that focused with music. So talking about the struggles that our students, and they relate to these artists and those populations and those stories and those journeys that they have, relating that and breaking that down into data analysis and being able to say, okay, let's analyze the rate of incarceration levels versus educational attainment levels or income levels or any of those different kind of data sets that we can look at. And so that was another way that we did that. That is a very long conversation. It serves multiple parts. You're teaching about statistics, but you can also talk about student reflection and trends and what they are internally understanding from themselves. So there's a piece of self-actualization and identity there. How do people see me or the communities that I come from versus my understanding of these communities and what they've given to me, and just how that's a very long mission as well. Some other things that we have done is, we would have free time where we allow students to record. Now, you may be saying to yourself, that's great. Where can I get all of this software? Now, I can explain that to you all. There's places you could buy all of that. And there's also a justification piece for that should your institution require that. So you can always reach out and contact me. But aside from the hardware piece, we would have students share any creative pieces that they may want to. You may have spoken word artists or people that like to do art. I bought this from at home. I didn't do this. It's a turntable. So you may have students that want to express themselves through written spoken word or through art, or you may have some artists that are there, and though you can't give them the software, you can certainly encourage them to create music and then come back and share it with the group. A lot of ways that can be done is using this thing on your smartphone. So iPhone has a voice memo tool, and the microphone is surprisingly not bad. And so if you were to play music through computer speakers, right, and then you were to actually hit record, you could probably record yourself over the music in a way that wouldn't be too intrusive. You wouldn't be like overbearing on top of the music. People would still hear your lyrics, and that's how you can do some quick recording at home. And a place where you can get free instrumentals or beats, as students call them. There's a place called BeatStars. That's an online beat community. By the way, none of this is endorsed so I don't want anybody to think that we're encouraging you to purchase any of these things. I'm just giving you examples. There's also a company called SoundClick that you can go to, and there's a million others that you could look at where you're providing students music, and you can talk about they can reflect on their lives and do written assignments. And that's a way where they can actually do something creative, share it with the group, and then process through it. So when you're asking yourself, okay, does that particularly work till STEM? Well, you'd want to have other equipment. And again, I can go into that detail should anybody want to talk about that. DJ equipment. So DJing, anytime you see a DJ on turntables and he's looking at a laptop, he's got a picture of two virtual turntables probably spinning if he's an up-to-date DJ, right? And all that is beat matching. So there's something called BPM. BPM is beats per minute. It's how you gauge records. You know, it's how you can tell that when you're working out, you probably want something with a fast BPM to keep you going. When you're driving in your car with your partner, you may want to listen to something a little slower and easy going. It's going to have a lower BPM. It's just a matter of preference. But analyzing beats per minute, all a DJ does is match beats per minute so that they pick up and mix off of each other. So I'm going to play this record, then I'll play this one that's going to lead into this one. And that's how you can tell who a really good DJ is. They have a good catalog of music, but they also understand beats per minute. Again, that is an exercise where you could have records that are entirely selected by maybe someone in your office and some staff, and you say, you know, we want to look at these. And if you, by the way, if you type in a song and then BPM, it'll be able, your chances are a little Googling, you can find BPMs for every song. So in case you're saying, well, how would I figure out BPMs for each record? There is a way to do that. But you could do that and say, you know, if you were going to mix these records together, which would come first, second, third, fourth? Like, what would you do and why? How would you pick up the BPMs? How would you lower it? And then there's the other end of the spectrum. What kind of story would you want to tell with these records if you want to do that? So there's all these different layers that you can delve into that'll get you really creative. Some additional pieces of some things that we have done include actually students, you know, picking out pieces of music, identifying music that they're currently listening to, analyze them, trying to guess certain things as far as frequency and pitch. A lot of records right now use what's called auto-tune. So when you record vocals, it looks a lot like an EKG with a bunch of up and down needle spikes, right? Auto-tune is a tool that allows you to flatten those out, and you can actually move the tone and the pitch of your vocals. So it can make the most tone-deaf person sound like they're on key, right? And that's really important because then you're studying pitch and frequency in another way. And so that's another example of a way that you can get the students involved and engaged and being able to pick music that they enjoy. Now, some things to consider about that: you want to make sure that the music is edited and content friendly. But there's a lot of different ways that you can engage with that whole particular piece. So in terms of STEM, again, some of this stuff you would have to be in person for. But if we're looking for music as an engagement tool as a whole, there are a lot of different ways to think about it along those lines that can really provide for that. Now, you may say to yourself, I'm not a music guru, Ray, so what am I doing here? Well, the one thing that you can do is to look at the resources that you have at your institution or organization. So myself, I've known Dr. Raphael Travis for some time. We have a passion for music, and so naturally our paths crossed in a bunch of different ways. But I also was just willing to reach out to other folks. And so you can start by looking at folks that are on your campus, people that may work in social work, anthropology, the School of Music, Mass Comm, any of these places, theater. Theater has some of the most talented artists and musicians that you're going to find. Not only can they sing a song, they can sing a song where they're climbing a vine for a Peter Pan play. Most people will be out of breath doing it. It's phenomenal. So you can reach out to these kind of departments and say, hey, you know, I'm interested in contracting an instructor. Do you have somebody that's available on faculty? Or do you have some students that are eager in getting an internship opportunity? And that's a way that you can start really trying to hone in on people with musician or media-based skill. You can also reach out to student organizations that are on campus. You know, so here we have an organization called the Hip Hop Congress, and we get hit up for a lot of different hip hop stuff. We're really involved in the social justice realm, the community service and civic engagement realm, but we do get contacted for those kind of things. Now, there may be musical student organizations that are on your campus. Maybe there's not a hip hop congress, but maybe there's music clubs or music organizations, and it doesn't have to be hip hop. You could look at any genre of music. So if you have folks that are studying classical, people that are studying Latin origin music, I mean, any of these things, rock, I mean, the list could go on, but if you think about it in that realm, the possibilities start to open up. You can also reach out to members of the community. So you can look up recording studios in your area, just type in recording studios. And I guarantee if you call one of those places and contact some people, they're going to know some people who know some people that can get you in touch with folks that would be able to teach your students. Again, with that particular piece, a good rule of thumb is we let everybody know ahead of time, hey, you're going to have a background check according to the schools that our students are at, in addition to the university. and all the other, screening requirements that we have for HR, et cetera. And that's to make sure, not saying, because there is a stigma when we're talking about stereotypes, that musicians come from questionable backgrounds, or they're just rolling stones in the wind. That's not the case. Most musicians are handling their business. They live most of them work full-time jobs as well. But you do want to make sure you handle all that ahead of time, because that will take time to actually get done. So that's my reason for saying that. But you contact folks like that, and then you're able to start making connections. Now, for your folks that are not hip-hop artists, there's other realms that you can think of in terms of STEM. So there's stage construction, right? Stage construction for these festivals, these kids. So you can get a whole lot of information from that. You can be involved in the media side. So camera and audio, that's the same thing. That's not somebody necessarily, composing a song and recording it, but they are involved in the other process. Never forget, for music, every artist that's on a stage, any genre, there's about 100 people behind them in the job that are taking care of those realms. You can talk money management, music management. So looking at budgeting and how would you do an event, or how would you put these things together? Time management. I mean, there's a lot of different applicable skills there. So let me see how long I've been talking here, because I have no idea, and it won't show me naturally just because it's on here. I hope that this has been beneficial. If this is a little short, I do apologize. However, I am willing to talk about this stuff all the time. My name is Ray Cordero once again. Email address is rc37@txstate.edu. I'd be happy to talk shop or share any other ideas. We have a ton of stuff that we're putting together here at Texas State. It's in preliminary stages for both. We were working on physical opportunities, but also virtual. And so I should have more information as the summer rolls on. Probably on getting your summer residential programs or your summer components or summer workshops or whatever you may be working on. But I'm always happy to talk shop. Always happy to bounce ideas back and forth with people. So please feel free to contact me. I want to thank COE, Angelica Vialpando, and of course, Maureen Hoyler, and Miss Jen Randolph, who's been gracious enough to go back and forth, as well as all the rest of the colleagues that I have that have been contacted from all over the country that are giving out great ideas. Keep thinking creatively. Creativity is one of the best things that can drive student engagement. And I'm here if you'd like to reach out to me. So I hope y'all have a very good day. We will talk to y'all soon. And remember, Trio works.
All right. Thanks, Ray, for that video. We truly appreciate it. We do have a lot of questions. I still don't have a good handle on if the GANs, if they have increases or not, to be honest.
And Jelly, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't, to be honest, because the department knows that there's going to be this carryover money. So giving institutions more money for next year they might have decided to put it into student support services. So
into the competition. Okay.
Right. So I'll check on that.
Okay, and I did send an email to Gaby Watts just to check.
Confirm it. Thank you.
I copied you. Okay, so our talent search program is going to have to report on the STEM supplemental activities on the 2019-2020 APR. What if the majority of our STEM activities were scheduled for the late spring and summer?
Then when you report on the APR, you say, we had to postpone these activities and are conducting them in the 2021 grant year.
This is just for clarification for the upper bound summer stipends. The recommendation is $400 a month in the summer, correct? Just want to make sure it's per month, not the total.
Per month.
If you served and reported a full...
And Jelly, let me say, this doesn't mean anybody has to, or any institution has to give $400 a month. It just means that they can give somewhere more than $60 a month, whatever the level they choose to utilize. So the 400 would be the ceiling.
And just a reminder that it's a recommendation from our board of directors that went to the Department of Ed, so that we have not heard a response for that as of yet. If you served and reported a full participant base, I guess her numbers, for 18-19, but was short in 19-20 due to the shortened school year, Why
It
would,
doesn't mean anything. Right now, it doesn't mean anything because they're looking at 18, 19 uh, for substantial progress into 2021. Now, in 2021, they would typically look at your serving students during 2021, not in, they wouldn't go back. This going back to a year is only being done because of the pandemic. They're not, this is not, they haven't changed their ways of doing business. So our assumption would be, and you can't make any assumptions because we don't know which schools are going to be online next year, which schools are going to, we don't know that. And I don't think any of us know that. But assuming things were back, that schools were back in session next year, which is the big assumption that they'll be in session for the whole year, then in determining substantial progress from 2021 to 21-22, they will look at what you're doing in 2021, and they will jump over the 19-20 year. Does that make sense?
yeah. On the change in scope going virtual, we've been told to wait on those requests until the FAQs have been published. Obviously, that's a timing could be after
you just assume that they're going to say yes. They can't say no. Okay, you can't wait. Okay, so you can put it in. They're going to tell you they can't answer it. But you just want to have a paper trail that that in case you have an auditor who hasn't been on planet Earth for the last the last 6 months, that you have a paper trail. Otherwise, there is absolutely no chance that you won't get approval to have moved your program to a virtual program. Absolutely no possibility.
Any updates on the EOC proposal writing deadline?
Only that it's probably getting, we had thought initially it could be as early as January. That looks less likely, and Talent Search looks like it could be as late as in early
2021.
Yeah.
We are considering giving students summer student computers instead of loaning computers. Is that allowable?
Okay. I want to go through this as conservative. I am not a conservative person. Okay. So I'm going to try to be more conservative than I usually am. In most instances, when I would be talking about this and getting its approval from the grants office of my institution, I would say it's a loan, okay? However, it's a loan of a consumable. It's a loan of something that the institution has no responsibility to keep track of. And if you are continuing to use that computer in your services to students in the 2021 year, there's no reason for you to take it back. Okay, but it probably would be good to think about what are the things that you've learned by going virtual that you would want to incorporate having the student do on the computer, not just in the summer, but going forward in your program. Is that clear, or is that as clear as mud? You want to be reasonable in the purchase. So you want to say, we purchased this, we're loaning it to them. However, we're loaning it to them as long as they're in the program. And by the time they're not in the program anymore, the computer or the Chromebook or whatever will not have any value. And if their little sister throws it out the window, it doesn't matter because the institution doesn't have any obligation to get it back, to record it, it has none of those obligations. But I probably would not approach my grants whoever gives you your approval on your expenditures and say, we're giving it to these kids. I think that that might be just a harder sell.
So someone said on the CDL on April 14th, we understood that it was not need approved for the Upward Bound summer program to go virtual, but today it sounds like we need to contact our program specialist for approval because of a change in scope.
What I'm saying, I think even in that day when we showed you the letter, it said, this is to let you know that we're taking our program virtual. You want a record that you have informed the department that you're running a virtual summer program. Now, if you send it today, they're going to tell you, we'll get back to you as soon as they can either say this nicely or not nicely, depending on how your particular program specialist. But at some point when you renegotiate your budget, when you tell them how you're using your carryover, at some point you want to say, this is a result of our taking our program from an in-person program to a virtual program. At some point in your communication with the Department of Education between the time they publish the FAQs and the time that after the time you get your new budget for 2021, you want to have informed them that you've taken your program virtual.
So back to the GANs, and someone said, I mean, it has a really good point that anytime a program specialist is updated in the G5 system, it does generate a GAN, an email with their new program specialist. So that could be the reason that some people are getting these as well. Again, I don't have confirmation, but that is true. And I do know that a number of program specialists have changed. Does COE offer any guidance on record keeping requirements for documenting student participation in virtual activities?
Yes. Now, remember, what you're required to, in the regulations, what you're required to document is that you provided services. You're not required to document that every service you provide. But you are required to document that this student got counseling, or this student participated in summer classes, or this student attended workshops. The point I'm making here is that you don't, every time somebody does something, you don't have to document it. But if you want to, the data system that COE has as proprietary does allow you to document all your virtual activities. But it's also possible to do that by having your counselor write down the number of students who are participating in a counseling session, or group counseling session, or taking a picture of a Zoom activity that you had. There is no signature requirement. There's never been a signature requirement in terms of documenting services. This is probably less than you want on documentation, but you want to, as you think about this, you want to think about where your exposure might be. Okay, where your institution's exposure might be. If you're giving students stipends for the summer program participation, and you have nothing to document that they did anything this summer, but you gave them $60 a month or $400 a month, then an auditor might say, well, why did you give them this stipend? How can you show that they participated? So you want some class assignments, what classes they were in, some summary from the teacher, something that shows that they participated in what the expectation that they participate in. Angelica, do you want to take that a little further or?
No, you're fine. That's
okay.
Okay, so we're only going to take a couple more questions. And then if there's any if there are any questions unanswered, you can email Angelica at angelica.vialpando@coenet.org. Is there any information on if the FAFSA will use the 2019 tax information? With the later tax date, students might not have taxes processed in time.
There's no information on that yet.
Okay, as far as,
But
go ahead.
somebody help me. You aren't required. Okay.
So 2020 would be prior year, right? So it'd be 2018.
So you're applying for financial aid for 2021.
Yeah, that
Prior year would be
2019.
1920, right?
Yeah.
No, prior year would be 1819.
For
Sorry.
2021.
Okay. Try it again. 2021. So it would be 19. You're right. And with the later tax year until August, they may not have the information. That's correct.
As far as work study stipends, last year was the first time we offered a work study experience, only because we received the one-time STEM supplemental funding. So this must be upward bound for because it was last year and not this year. For this summer, do we need to get approval from our program specialist if we now have transferred to a virtual program and students are now completing steps processes as one would in an internship position?
Remember, the only time you need approval from your program specialist is not when you add a component. It's not when you move money into something like work study. That doesn't require approval from your program specialist. Now, if it was the reverse, but it's not the reverse, that triggers other language. But adding a work study component does not require approval. Again, it's 200.308 of the cost. Now I'm blanking on what they call this.
The 7?
200.308 is when
it's revision, budget program and budget revisions or something like that.
And part 200 is uniform administrative requirements, cost principles for federal awards. So this is what the department, not the department, this is what the Office of Management Budget publishes, the uniform, the cross the government administrative requirements, and it's section 200.308.
Can COE request a blanketed approval for the Department of Ed to purchase equipment?
No. They may give it, but okay, let me.
And it's in, I don't think she means equipment, but okay.
Okay. There are a number of you who are trying to buy these computers or Chromebooks for your students, and you're not getting a negative response from your program specialist. In that instance, I would take the request to Dr. Burjohnson.
Can we move funds? Oh, no. Can you reference the regulation that states meals are allowed?
Yes, if you give me a minute. Unless, Stella, you're faster on pulling up the upper bound rates.
Not on my laptop
I'm
here.
fast enough. Okay. Why don't you go to the next question?
Yep. So there wouldn't be a difference between participation and work study. Currently, these ceilings for each are 60, 30, 300. So I think there is a huge difference in the summer participation for your program and work study. Work study is that you are it says that they are working in an area to see careers in post-secondary education, which is a much bigger lift than your summer bridge or your summer program in general. It says, can 2018 income tax returns be used to verify, document a student applicant's TRIO eligibility? 2018 income tax.
For what year? If you're admitting them to the 1920 during this program year, yes. If you're admitting them to your next grant year, no. Right? So as long as you do it before the end of your grant, yes. Your one-year grant is what I'm trying to reference.
So someone said, so I apologize, but I need clarification. I caught the end of the UB summer stipend. All UB students are allowed $400 per month. That is no. That is something that we are recommending to the Department of Education right now. There has not been a response. So right now it's $60 per month for students that are in your summer program. And it says, can this be applied to all grades 9 through 12? Anybody who comes to your summer program can be allotted a stipend based on the criteria of how you give stipends out.
Okay, so the citation about allowable cost it's the upward bound regulations, okay? So it's 645.40, which it reads, what are allowable costs? And in that, C, so it's 645.40C, for participants in an upward bound residential program, room and board computed on a weekly basis, not to exceed the weekly rate the host institution charges regularly enrolled students. So people can interpret this differently and say that the reason they put residential in there is because they are saying that you can't pay more than that they charge regular students. And it's clearly the department's practice that they allow meals, which is what board is, whether or not a program is residential. So the fact that it is not residential, it is not significant, is not substantial, because the department has consistently approved meal costs for non-residential programs.
Can you say that again, the citation again?
It's 645.40C.
Perfect. And so that is our last question of the day. We thank you for joining us. If you have unanswered questions, you can go ahead and email Angelica at angelica.vialpando@coenet.org. And this concludes our Connect, Discuss, Learn. We'll have another set of these type of webinars the week of June 8th. So I think I might be, no, I'm right. They are on our website. I'm almost sure, not under our program development, but under, if you log into our, if you log into your COE record, you can go to events through that way and it should be up. If you have any other questions, you can always email Angelica at angelica.vialpando@coenet.org. Thank you for being with us today.